Hello, and welcome back to the kingdoms that are more than 6 but less than 8. We're happy to finally be back in the world of Westeros, where things are harsh but somehow still sweet because we have a new Game of Thrones show that is a little bit different in tone, but still has a little bit of expectation of some of that brutality and nuance that we know and love. This new show is based on George R. R. Martin's Dunk and Egg novellas, which tell the story of a young knight looking to make his name and do the right thing, who comes across a squire that turns out to be a little bit more than he bargained for. And they travel Westeros together, trying to figure out what life really is, who they can help, who they should avoid. And, it ends up being an interesting story for all of us. This is whole new territory for a lot of people, and we are very excited to get into it. We definitely have thoughts so far here on the podcast. Welcome. My name is Ebube, and you are listening to Popcorn for Dinner. I will not be doing this alone, though, because I'm joined by Afam, who spends a lot of time with me in Westeros talking about, really, really temperamental, platinum-haired people, their dragons, and all the other things that kind of make them unhappy. And I guess, Afam, how are you feeling so far?
I'm just waiting for Rhaenyra to show up on screen. That's all.
I feel like you're not the only one who is. Yeah, that's going to be something that we will discuss, because I guess we need to figure out the timelines. But I suppose we might need an expert for that. So people, please join me in also welcoming Soonen, who is returning to the podcast to help us figure things out, because there's not that much happening yet, but there will be. So welcome, Soonen.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to dive into the world of Westeros. I love being here. Thank you.
Yeah, this could not be more divinely ordained, honestly. So I guess, what do you guys think? We are finally here. We've seen what the show is going to be like. I mean, what did we expect going in?
I think for me, every time we hear a new A Song of Ice and Fire show is coming out, my initial reaction is, oh my god, no, I don't want to watch another show. I want George to finish writing The Winds of Winter. And then I watch it, I'm like, oh, that was pretty good.
He's taking his time with those.
Yeah.
He's taking his time, but it's fine, because he doesn't owe it to us. I think that's where I am in the cycle of this. He doesn't owe it to us.
You've reached that point of acceptance.
Exactly. But I think that my initial, because this particular aspect of Westerosi history is something I'm not as familiar. I mean, I know what happens, but I'm not as familiar with the details. And part of it is because that's the way the books are written, like the graphic novels and stuff of this period of time. So there's an element of exploratory that I feel from watching this. It feels like the stakes are lower, but in many ways the stakes are a lot higher. So kind of taking a step back from the existential doom of the White Walkers and the Civil War of the Dance of the Dragons, and to be a different period in Westerosi time where it looks like there's relative peace, but there's always everything's always balanced on the knife's edge. It's pretty good.
Yeah. So now, how did you feel about it?
I loved it so much. So funny enough, prior to figuring out I was going to be on the pod, with the show coming out, I'd actually read the books, and it was just amazing to see Westeros from a different vantage point. I think Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon focused a lot on the High Lords and Ladies. There were really shows about political intrigue. This is a totally different view of Westeros, and one that I've been looking forward to for a long time. We saw glimpses of it in Game of Thrones and in House of Dragon. In Game of Thrones, episodes like Hard Home, episodes like, in the Riverlands, when you've got Arya traveling with the Hound. Just a real view into what life is like for, the folks that aren't just lounging around in the Red Keep or in their big castles. Even the intrigue of lesser houses and what goes into that and how they interact with small folk and how small folk interact with them.
Yeah.
I love the tone. I'm super excited for more of this.
Yeah, small folk are a huge focus here. And, we're dealing with a lot of people who don't have a family name to fall back on, a family name to, I guess, weaponize against others, where it's kind of a whole new territory in that. Even in this series, we start by meeting Dunk, right? He's burying his mentor slash knight that he's been squiring for years since he was a boy, Sir Arlen of Pennytree, who we learn little by little about in, I guess, glimpses, slight flashbacks, like momentary flashbacks. And I mean, I suppose we get a chance to form a bit of an opinion on the guy, based on the kind of man he is and based on the kind of world Westeros is. But Dunk is clearly broken up about it. He's burying the guy. He's not entirely sure what to say. We notice a few things immediately, right? Dunk is big and strong, like huge. He's unnaturally, or I guess unusually tall for somebody in this world. And I found it interesting that he was burying the man under a tree, so to speak. And he has all these keepsakes, I suppose, from Sir Arlen. He has the horses, he has his sword, a little bit of armor, his shield, and all that, and he's trying to figure out what he should do next. I mean, he does mention, right, that selling the horses could have him eating good for like a year, maybe two. That just tells you a little bit about what that wealth means, right? Because we're used to seeing, families and castles and houses in Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon where people just have horses running around willy-nilly. That just tells you the difference in wealth between the people that we're used to seeing and the people that we will be seeing in this show. So
Absolutely.
I think it's fun that it's kind of going through things like starting on the ground floor and letting us see what people actually go through in the world of the series. But of course, he starts to move and then he's trying to figure out what to do. What do you guys feel about that first impression that we get of Dunk and the fact that, he has some things to say, but he's not entirely sure of himself? I mean, how do you feel about the introduction, especially you, Soonen, as somebody who read the book? Like, does he live up to that image in your head?
Absolutely. That opening scene, honestly, is a masterclass in storytelling. And it's translated so beautifully from the book to the screen.
They've done a good job, yeah.
What I love the most about it is how it tells the story through those quick cuts that you mentioned, strategically showing the breadth of their relationship and the different situations they had found them in, and even providing like so much characterization in such a little amount of time instead of your extended like
It's very efficient.
monologues, and like exposition. Like the quick cuts to Sir Arlan hitting him tells you this is a man of violence. He's used to employing violence. Showing Dunk at different ages, it shows you they've been together for a long time. Even the background of some of those quick cuts shows like they've been in crazy situations together. And lastly, Dunk's physicality, which we'll get to in later scenes even more, is spot on with how he's described in the books. The actor does an amazing job. And it's a scene that merely just launches you into the story and grabs you.
Yeah, Peter Claffey is pretty good in the role. I mean, Afam, what was your first impression?
I think like watching, first of all, the actor who played Dunk, he did such an amazing job because my mind kept going back to was in season 2 or 3 of Game of Thrones when Arya was working on the Tywin Lannister and she was playing the part of the peasant. And I just remember Tyler telling her that if you're talking to lowborn girls, say "milord," not "my lord,"
Versus
because
my
they don't
lord,
even know
yes.
the difference. And I just felt like Dunk embodied the milord, where he just felt like you could see within his relationship with his former what do you call him? How do you define their relationship?
Knight,
I mean, we know it's not a
Squire.
circle because
Squire, yeah.
they're not Targaryens, but it's former reverse Squire, whatever. You can see a lot of that Lord energy where he's huge and physically intimidating and imposing, and I'm assuming super strong and everything. But like because of like society, he's like belittling himself. He walks with like a little bit of a tilt. You don't know where rather than standing, fully embracing his size.
Yeah, despite being so tall, he shrinks himself, right?
Yeah.
He's constantly apologizing. And that's because of the position that he's been given in life. Like, imagine somebody this tall being a Targaryen. Like, the world would never hear the end of it, right? The world would literally never hear the end of it. It's supposed to be wreaking havoc wherever he goes. And I know that at some point in this show, we will be meeting some Targaryens. So I think it makes sense actually for us to kind of establish when this is happening. Because I don't think the show has yet, right? The show hasn't been very clear about what's going on here. So for reference, if we call the world of Game of Thrones like 0.0, right? This is, if we think of that as now, the original Game of Thrones series, House of the Dragon happens, or I guess kind of starts roughly 180 to 200 years before now. And this show, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, starts about 100 years before. So we're talking like maybe 90 to 100 years, and also about 100 years after House of the Dragon. So there are lots of things that we will see here that may give us some context into not just how Game of Thrones came to be, but also what the aftermath of the events we're seeing in House of Dragon are. Like, they're probably not going to do anything too spoilery, like tell us who actually won that war. And we are not going to be telling you either, because we just like to laugh here. But at the same time, we will be understanding the world that was created from that conflict. And of course, the actual series House of the Dragon will be back later this year for its third season. And that promises to be a little bit chaotic. If not a lot chaotic.
A little bit is underselling it.
Yeah. There's a lot that's gonna happen in that show. So now, once we start to meet the Targaryens, I'm sure people will have lots of questions like, okay, are there still dragons here? Where are the other houses? Things like that. So I'm sure we're gonna see a lot of Easter eggs. Dunk goes and he meets a bunch of people. He goes to I guess.
Sorry, real quick before we go forward, there's a specific part of that scene that I want to call attention to, which is the use of the Game of Thrones rousing theme music.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Cutting to Dunk pooping under the tree, and I think that was intentional. It's intentional because at the end of the show, it's written by Ira Parker and George R.R. Martin. And we know all too well the tension between George R.R. Martin and the showrunners of the original Game of Thrones, Benioff and Weiss. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a little funny, petty dig at them, and also establishing the tone that this is not that,
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? And that's what I was actually just about to mention. So thank you. Like, in terms of of how certain things about the tone are established, not just under that tree, but where Dunk is heading. Because I did actually love that moment where like the rousing music comes up and we think we're getting that theme song, but like we're not actually getting that opening theme. Like, it doesn't seem like we'll be having such an opening sequence here. They're not even spending time on that. This is supposed to be like a shorter feeling series. Like, the episodes are shorter. The mood is a bit lighter so far anyway. And it's just this idea that there is so much to look forward to, but also it's not taking itself too seriously. Like, the idea of him actually like having his stomach just like get the better of him in that situation is crazy. And it's not even just a tension between George R. R. Martin and Benioff and Weiss. It's also a tension between him and Ryan Condal, which is still fresh in a lot of people's minds, right? Because Ryan Condal has kind of like, I think a lot of people were happy with the way House of Dragons started, but I think now a lot of fans are feeling a lot of tension regarding where the show has gone, what the show has adapted or decided not to adapt, the things that they're supposedly not being as faithful to. And now George R. R. Martin is like, this guy has been writing books for a long time. He used to work in television. Now he's like, nah, I'm back. Like, this show is created by George R. R. Martin.
Yeah.
This show is written by George R. R. Martin. So it's going to be probably very faithful. And already we're seeing that they're translating things in a fun way. I mean, we've heard of tourneys in different places, right? We've heard of different activities that people do to kind of show their worth, prove their valor. And now we're heading to Ashford via an inn. And I think at that inn is where Dunk meets Egg, who is played by Dexter Ansell. And what was you guys' first impression of Egg? I think it's probably time that we think about him before we go on to later activities. How did he come across on screen in terms of his attitude, his character, his confidence, right? Like, it's not the kind of thing you'd expect from a normal, quote unquote, stable boy who's just randomly standing around.
Yeah, he's bald. I've never seen a kid that bald in my life. Oh my God. I couldn't not stare at his head. We have to say it. I could not stare. No, it was like the light was reflecting. Like, geez.
Bro,
Yeah.
like, he has this blank look on his face, his expression, like as if his face is just always asking you, "Are you dumb?"
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another thing I loved about him was in that initial interaction, how he is very good at, not giving too much information, but answering questions that are asked. And yeah, he seems like a very intelligent boy. Definitely. And yeah, the actor, amazing.
Yeah. I think what I like about both Dunk and Egg's actors is that I read the graphic novel, not the actual book. So I have like a very vivid image of what Dunk and Egg look like. And in 30, 40 minutes, my entire view has changed to the actors. So they did such a good job that like I see them as who the actors are.
And honestly, that boy is actually very young. Like, he's literally 11 years old. So that just tells you how young he was when they filmed this. Like, he's younger than 11, maybe younger than 10 when they're filming this. So he is doing such an amazing job of carrying this role at such a young age. So he clearly understands the material. He understands what he's doing, and I'm glad that we have like a fresh face who's here to do interesting work. Like, I think so far in the show, we've not really seen a lot of familiar faces, and I think that's partly intentional. They want us to feel like we're going into something new, and sometimes faces can be distracting in that way. I mean, the people who we know from Game of Thrones are huge now, but there was a time when they were just people we didn't really know. Kit Harington, Rose Leslie, Emilia Clarke, Richard Madden. Like, we didn't know them that well, and then now they are household names. So I wonder if that's something that would be happening for the people here too.
Well, there was one person I recognize only because I'm a TV addict. Popcorn for dinner, for real. Which we'll get to, the Master of Games. I believe that actor is in a show called Say Nothing, where he plays an older version of a character called The Dark or Brandon something. I was like, that Leo meme where it's like, hey, yeah, that was literally me in that moment. But yeah, he was amazing, like he was in Say Nothing. Highly recommend that show.
I was just about to mention that dude, actually, the Master of Games. Like, what a guy! Like, first of all, bro, way to clear your throat. Like, I understand you're going through things. I understand this guy's going through things. I'm just the level of comedy in the portrayal of such a character. Like, even Dunk, who has spent his whole life like in the streets, is like, bro, are you okay? It's interesting because we hear a lot about what the next few episodes are going to be like from just a few words that this guy says, right? We have an idea of what the laws are. We have an idea of what's required of Dunk, and we actually are given a brief preview of the stakes, right? He says that there is going to be a vanquishing fee, which is something that jousts always mention jousts are always mentioned in Game of Thrones, right? But I think this is the first time that we've really been told explicitly in any of these shows what it means to lose a joust. And it's funny because, of course, it's the first time we're hearing about it, because the people we normally see jousting are not bothered by money. Like that's literally it. Like they don't have that problem. It's like you lose a joust, the only thing that's hurt is your pride. But for Dunk, it's like, okay, you lose your joust, you lose your horse, you lose your arms, you lose your armor, right? And this is somebody who that is everything that he needs to survive in the world. Like this is valuable stuff to him. He's not Daemon Targaryen who has like 5 other sets of armor at home that he's probably not even seen yet. They just have them on standby. So I think having that in there presented in a comedic way while also talking about stuff like the Ashford chair, which, good God Almighty, is that's pretty funny. Like the Master of Games is obviously a menace, and one thing that I actually really found hilarious is when he's like, "This is the Reach, not the Riverlands."
Not the Riverlands. I love little stuff like that.
Riverlands in the mud, literally.
I mean, aren't they always?
This is crazy because obviously, like, historically, when bigger countries or states or whatever are fighting, they usually meet somewhere in the middle, like, and have all their conflicts there. And those places tend to bear all the brunt. Like we see this even in stories like Naruto, where the people in the hidden rain village were so angry at what was going on. It's like, why are you guys always coming to fight here? Like the place, first of all, why is it always raining in that place? But that's not the story we're here for. Still, this place is also just endlessly, messed up. It is endlessly wet. It's endlessly chaotic. The Riverlands, like this quote unquote province or kingdoms, in Westeros, where everybody's battles can just end up happening. I mean, we see a little bit of that in House of Dragon too. Daemon spends most of the season of the second season in the Riverlands, and he's going there to establish a foothold to prevent certain enemies from getting where they need to go. So I think it's funny that we see that kind of energy here. We see a situation where these people know that they are A, safe, and B, not really in danger of anything that would be like real conflict. And it also tells you a little bit about the decisions that go into where events like this happen, because the joust is happening in Ashford, which is in the Reach, which tells you that it's fertile. It tells you that there's going to be a lot of provision. People are probably going to be chilling. Economically, it tells us a little bit about Westeros, because nobody goes to set up a tourney in the Riverlands, generally, unless you're doing it in Harrenhal, which, maybe don't do that. Maybe don't do that. So yeah, I think the show feels great in that way. It's telling us little by little about the world, in subtle ways, and obviously it looks great too. Like, what did you guys think about the set pieces, the cinematography, like everything that makes us, feel what's happening in a tactile way, alongside what the show is actually trying to show and tell us?
The costume designers are wow.
Very
Like
good.
the
Best of the best.
honestly, the amount of difficulty to wear something in a way where it looks like this thing has actually been through a lot. Like Dunk's tunic, his robe, like the
Everything
clothes
in that
of
guy's position has seen better days.
honestly. And even like, also like using that to denote the characterization. This is someone that's used to sleeping rough, as opposed to like the guards, the soldiers, even the our boy, the games master with his fine, black clothes, but fine, but not that fine, like
Exactly.
it's really more power to them. I was really impressed.
Yeah, I think, to me, the cinema, So it just reminded me of the show Fleabag that I love. The sharp cuts between the
Yes.
different scenes. Like the, I didn't think about the costume design as much, but now that you mention it, just I was like, yeah, that was actually kind of fire. But the thing that stood out the most when I watched the episode was the cinematography, those sharp cuts, and I felt like it just kept me on my toes a little bit,
Yes.
just because it wasn't taking itself too seriously, but it was very well done, and it's hard to do both of being like fun and whimsical, but also being like, ooh, that's a cool scene, that's a cool shot, that was beautiful.
It keeps the pace in check, and it
Hmm.
lends to the comedy as well. Fleabag, that's an interesting comparison in this situation. Funny enough, Phoebe
Hmm.
Waller-Bridge is the kind of random person that I would love to see in a show like this because anything could happen. But speaking of random appearances, right? We do actually meet some people who are very noble. I mean, Dunk spends most of his time, trying to find, well, somebody, anybody who can give him leave to actually attend this. And that tells you more about the economics and politics of this place. He can't just enter. Someone has to vouch for him as a knight. But he's not really a knight. He's been a squire. And he's styling himself as a knight now because he wants to make his way in the world. So
Allegedly.
Allegedly, right? So
yeah. We don't actually see Sir Arlen Knight.
Yeah, that's true. We don't actually. That's his issue. The fact that no one is like no one really believes, right? And nobody seems to know who Sir Arlen is either, right? So it's like he's looking for somebody who they've been in the service of to kind of vouch for him and say, okay, this guy can join the lists. But obviously that's an issue. Along the way, he meets some very angry people. He runs into the Fossilways, and small men do small things. I guess it's as simple as that. Why beat up your own cousin? But I guess the interesting thing there is that leads him into the tent of somebody who's actually very interesting, right? He gets into the tent of Daniel Ings, who plays Lionel Baratheon.
I screamed.
And that is fun, right? Because I remember seeing him and thinking, everything they've ever told me about young Robert Baratheon, this is probably what that looked like. This is what that looked like with somebody with a big beard, black hair, just overly jovial, definitely popular with the ladies. It was cool to see that in real life, like a young Baratheon type person. Like I remember looking at this guy and thinking, this guy definitely is. Like, I can definitely agree that this guy is an ancestor of not just Robert, but Renly.
Yeah. Yes.
He had that
lives too.
He had that same
Yeah.
vibe. He had this. He had a vibe to him, like it's kind of person that's just likable. Which I mean, in hindsight, it makes you wonder, like, Stannis, what happened to you?
Honestly, I have theories that we're gonna see similarities to Stannis later on.
Really?
Perhaps, yeah.
I can.
In terms of like being stern, right? Because this is somebody who would. Like, he's the leader of one of the great houses at this point.
Yeah, so he can be a fool. Oh, he can be, but I'm hoping he's not. Because I love Daniel Ings. Like, I first saw him in this show called Lovesick, and then he was in The Gentleman. He's been in a bunch of other things that I really like. So I saw him I didn't do any like research on casting. I barely even watched the trailer because I wanted to walk in like fully blind, and I saw his face and I literally screamed. I was like, oh my God, let's go.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it was fun seeing, the activities that happened there, the fact that he actually wants to talk to Dunk, the fact that Dunk is confused as well is like, I'm sure he's like, how did I enter here? And when you really think about it, it's like, how does this guy actually enter this place? Because he wouldn't walk in here on his own.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Raymond Fossilway really hooked him up with that invite to the tent. But I mean, it feels like such a universal experience. Which one of us haven't been somewhere where we're like, oh wow, how did I get in here?
Bro, if I tell you the number of times I ended up in a place and I'm just like eating random snacks and it's just like, okay, but like
eating hors d'oeuvres, be like, oh wow, I hope nobody finds me.
Oh my goodness, man.
It could be worse. It could be at a party and you see a lot of baby oil and oops. What's going on here?
Oh, glad you didn't turn into
oh my God, bro. And that's the crazy thing is, in a different part of this world, that's the kind of thing that can be happening.
That is absolutely possible.
Deadass.
If you had ended up at a what's it called? At Viper party, Red Viper party, probably
Yeah,
would.
that's wild. But yeah, I think the show has done a good job of establishing itself here. Like we're being given a situation where anything can happen. Like anything can literally like jump out at us, and it could be an Easter egg, it could be something completely new. But the show doesn't seem to waste a moment. Like it's giving us everything that we need in order to understand and to endear us to these characters. I mean, by the end of the episode, we do see that these two reunite. Like obviously Dunk and Egg, Dunk tells him, don't follow me, because obviously Egg is trying to follow him to the tourney when they meet at the inn, and he's like, no. Then he gets there and he's obviously kind of had a whole day of absolutely no success. So then he goes back to his little tent. I love that little moment when he first is looking for a place to rest his head, and he finds that tree with like the stream next to it, and it's like, like there's like a smile on his face. It's like, okay, I feel a little bit of comfort. Like they took the time to show us him smiling and feeling like, okay, he's making some progress before, showing us the fact that he is, suffering in a lot of other ways. So now he's kind of stuck with this kid, and he's probably going to end up swearing for him. So what are you guys' predictions for episode 2 before we close out?
Rhaenyra pops up.
That would be fun. And impossible, but fun.
So if you notice, right, when Dunk is walking through the area of the pavilions, there's a girl who's doing a performance.
Yes, we did notice.
They exchange a look, he's clearly
very infatuated.
Yes. I think there's hopefully going to be an interaction with them next episode. I'm certainly looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to diving into the world of tourneys. I think, there's a lot of interesting rules that most watchers of Game of Thrones or House of Dragons don't really know. And I think, as we get in there, it'll be very interesting to see what that world is like and why people do it. Not just hedge knights like Dunk trying to actually earn money for a living, but people like Sir Lionel or Lord Lionel Baratheon and other lesser lordlings.
Yeah, this show is full of people who are trying to get by. They're not trying to save the world. They're not trying to to win the kingdom from their sibling. They're not trying to vanquish the White Walkers. They are not trying to avoid joining the they're just trying to be.
Yeah.
They're trying to exist. And I think we have a good sort of glimpse of that in here. Because even with the young lady that Dunk finds himself infatuated with, who we're definitely going to learn about soon, that also contributes to, the feel of the world and, the way people tell stories, because obviously they are doing like a little bit of of a play, like a puppet show. And you can tell like the dragon imagery is very prominent in there. So that tells you, okay, these people are still people who have, kind of an understanding of the significance of dragons. And it's like, we haven't really seen any, royal family members yet, but we know that they're still around somehow, right? So that's kind of interesting in the way that is presented. So I'm looking forward to how they continue to present things more. If we're going to be meeting royal family members soon, I think that we'll be seeing the tourney start. Like, I don't know, I'm guessing / hoping Dunk does get into the tourney somehow. I mean, based on what we see in the trailer, we do see him donning some armor and sitting on a horse. So I think he's going to be involved in one way or another. The question is, how does he get in? And what role does Egg play in that? And obviously Egg is a very interesting name for a child, which is funny because, he is the baldest kid we've ever seen, now that I think about it.
Bald.
So really an egg.
Yeah. But any final thoughts, gentlemen?
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited. I am so happy to be back in Westeros, and yeah, looking forward to a great season, and also excited to be back with you too. You guys are cool.
Hey man, I've been looking forward to this. I genuinely have. It's nice to actually be watching a show that respects your intelligence in a fun way. Like, thankfully, we've been getting a few of those lately. I just spent, the end of 2025 watching Pluribus and being like, bro, like, Pluribus was just amazing. And this is amazing in a different way. It's nice to see like recognition, being given to these shows, these stories, these writers. I mean, literally, as we sit here, Ray Seahorn is already winning awards for her performance in that show, and I'm just very happy about it. I think this show is going to go far because it's not trying to do too much, and it's nice when a show kind of wants to not necessarily stay in its lane. It still wants to aim for something good, but it's respecting its audience and it's trying to, it's trying to do what it's set out to do. And I think that's always a good thing because the writers are more focused on their story than trying to tell a cool story. They just want to tell the story that they want to tell. So yeah, thank you all so much for listening up until this point. This has been fun. We're looking forward to the next few episodes. There are going to be 6 episodes in this show. We will be covering all of them weekly right here on the feed as soon as the episode ends. So definitely tune in for our coverage because we're going to have a lot to say and a good amount is going to actually happen in the show. So I guess till next time, stay off the lists.
Stay off the list.